Hey, what's up everybody? Ramey here, and today we're talking about lever arms. Should you buy these things? Are they worth it? Are they cool? We're not talking about specific brand here, we're talking about lever arms in general. What do I kind of think about them after using them for several months now and having them? The lever arms that I specifically have are the Titan X3 lever arms. I actually have them on my Titan series rack. But we'll kind of talk about lever arms in general. I'm going to talk about the different features that some of the other companies offer, what to look for, and whether I think you should really buy these things or not. The idea behind lever arms is that they're going to function just like hammer strength or any kind of machine where you can do presses, leg press, shoulders, all kinds of different exercises. In fact, you can go out there and see this video where there's 30 different exercises that lever arms can accomplish. And I'll talk about whether I think that those exercises are actually good or not after I talk about them for a little bit. When you have a lever arm, basically a lever arm is just an upright, a short upright that functions on a pendulum. It's anchored to a point on the rack, and it's like a pendulum in that it swings from one point to another in like this giant arc shape, which can be good or bad when you put weight on. Lever arms come with all kinds of different handles, such as this kind of grip. You can use straight kind of grips, and you can actually connect pull-up bars across your lever arms to make them like one motion. So I kind of got to play around with all the different setups, all the different exercises. I played around with all the different grips to see what I'd really like. Let me show you just a few of the exercises that I like with the lever arms, which include, so some of the exercises that I really liked include the chest press, the shoulder press, and the belt squat. Those were kind of the exercises that I thought were really good. I did try out a number of other exercises like leg press and deadlifts and like some lat raises and some different, all kinds of variations of things, and I really just couldn't find that getting the right position for those exercises. They just weren't preferable for me. I really think that the three exercises I showed were ones that I actually thought were really good and function just like the machine. So one of the interesting things about these lever arms that I will say is that the first time that you get them, they take a while to set up. And what I mean by that is every increment here that I move this up or down really changes the motion of the machine. And every place that I put like my grip on the bar changes how the machine feels as well. And the reason that that happens is because of this pendulum action. Whereas when it's like flat like this, it doesn't require any strength at all. And when I get higher, all of a sudden gravity's taking effect. And this is a lot harder to push than when it's right here and I could tap it with my finger. Whereas right here, it's taking a lot more strength. So that's magnified when you put weight on. So one of the things that I recommend when someone first gets lever arms, and one of the reasons that I think that people think they're so frustrating to use, is that there are so many ways to adjust them. So for me to find like the perfect angle, like I actually do a seated bench press with them. For me to find the perfect setup probably took a solid like 10 to 15 minutes of like changing this thing around a bunch of times. And then what I need to do is like write down where that angle was on my lever arm so that I remember how to reset it up that way. And I had to do that for every exercise. So it was kind of like this learning process where like the first time you get them, the first day, you're like, oh, these are kind of frustrating. But like after 2 or 3 times and you know how to set it up quickly, they become much better. So it's one of those things where like you kind of have to learn how to use it. So I think that's one thing that initially probably frustrates people when they get these things, and that's one of the reasons why you hear people say, well, I don't really like them, they're kind of a pain. So I think that's one thing that you will run into. The other thing I ran into is I realized that like, for me, I really wanted these for leg press, and I realized they just didn't function well for that, for my body type. I have like lengthy arms and legs, and it just, I couldn't get in a seated position correctly well. I tried laying on the floor and like pushing up on them. That didn't work out too well either. I just really couldn't get in a good position to use lever arms with a leg press, which was disappointing for me. I know some other people out there have found like this great leg press motion with lever arms that works with their body type, and I think that that's great for them, and I'm happy for them, I'm jealous of them. So getting past the exercises, because you know, as I said, there's a video out there of like 30 different lever arm exercises that you can use. I think that for you need to ask yourself, like when you're thinking about purchasing these things, you got to kind of ask yourself, what are my goals with these things? What gap are they gonna fill in? Because as I said, there's multiple options with these. So like if your goal is to replace, like have a chest accessory, and you really want to do like some kind of chest press with machines, and you want to use these, I do think these can be a viable option for it. I also think you need to think about like, how is the lever arm you're buying made? Like what kind of grips does it come with? Like does it come with this kind of grip? Mine came with this kind of grip, and I found that I actually hated it. I really despised this grip. It was like not long enough for me, and I just could never get in the right position for it. But what I found is that I really preferred a straight handle. This is actually just a plate holder that would go right here. And with the Titan ones that I have, I can switch like where all this stuff goes. I actually put my plate holder right here for my plates, and then put another plate holder right here that I use to hold on to. For whatever reason, this grip just didn't work well with me. So if you are getting lever arms and this was like on permanently, you might want to see that you can like adjust the different kind of handles that the lever arms you get have. Also where the plate position is. I found that the plate position here on the side really didn't work too well with the exercises I was doing. The plate would like always hit stuff, but putting it here actually worked for everything really well. So like adjustments on the lever arm itself are super important when thinking about if you're going to buy these things. The other thing to consider is the mounting bracket. So on this Titan version that I have, the mounting bracket actually comes off the rack, which is both good and bad. It's great because some lever arm systems have a trolley feature, which means that the lever arm is going to go up and down, which makes it super easy to adjust. Like anyone can adjust it, it makes it super easy. But the disadvantage of that is that means that it's going to be on your rack permanently. Like this thing is on the front of my rack permanently would be absolutely terrible. I would highly recommend, unless you know you're using these like every day, all the time, and love them, I would really hate to buy that system because it's kind of a pain. Like this is taking up a ton of rack space, and it's just like on the front of my rack now, permanently. So that would be terrible to have that trolley system. So I really think the trolley system up and down, while it makes it easier to adjust them, still huge pain. And my rack's 100 inches, so this is not a short rack. On an 80-inch rack, this will take up like half the rack. Mine's 100 inches, and it's still taking up a huge piece of real estate. So I don't store these whatsoever on here. And that's another thing to think about when you're buying these things is, where am I storing them, assuming I can take them off? Like, they're big. Like, where is this thing going in my house? For me, what I actually do is I put it on the back of I have a 6-post rack. I put them right on the sides of you can actually see my lever arm right here. This is where I store it in the back, so it's not actually in the way of anything. That's just what I use for plate storage. So it's not in the way of anything. It's completely out of the way, not on the ground, simple place. When I use them, I put them right here. So, as I said, if this is a trolley system and it's permanently on your rack, I think that's a terrible design. Great for moving up and down, but terrible in that you got to keep these things on. I hate keeping things on my rack, so that's just a personal thing. Now, the one that I have from Titan actually comes off. I can pull this off and put it anywhere. So that's awesome in that I can put this on anywhere and then move it when I'm done using it. Now the disadvantage of that is this thing is super heavy. So if you're smaller, or like my wife could definitely not move these. She would probably, this design's a little dangerous with your fingers right here. She'd probably cut her finger, or hurt herself severely by trying to move these because they're heavy and they're a big pain. It's not easy to do. It's not something that's fun. So that's another reason that people get frustrated with these things, is moving them is not a fun process. Now I've done some modifications to mine, which I'm going to do when I review just the Titan series, or the X3 lever arms, and then I'll talk about my modifications to make all that stuff easier. But yeah, it's not fun to move them. So the disadvantage of the ones you move is that they're super heavy and it's kind of a big pain. So either way, you're going to get pretty frustrated. The next feature that people look for on lever arms is that some lever arms, and mine do not do this, have pins right here, like holes. And what that does is it allows you to put your lever arm like in this position, put the pin in, and your lever arm will just stay in this position, so that you can like start right here. Now there are ways around that if you do not have pins. One, people will simply put their safety spotter arms right here, and like it'll just put the lever arm right here. Another thing people do is that they'll actually tie a chain to the top and just put a chain and a hook like right on your lever arm to keep your lever arm in whatever position. So there are lots of workarounds for that. So, there are ways to do it, but it is nice, the ones that have the pin here. That also means more pricey when you're talking about that. So those are kind of the features of lever arms. Does it have holes in the side? I found that I've never used these holes for anything other than putting my grips and stuff on. But you can do all kinds of things like put band pegs on here, especially like if you want to connect. Like when I talked about like my finger presses on this and it's really light right here. If I were to connect bands to my lever arms, it makes it so that it's not light right here. It's one of the ways people have found that they really like using the lever arms is with bands and weight, or just bands themselves. So having the holes is great for band pegs. So there are, things that you want to look for like that. Also the length, like how big is my rack versus how big is the band, like the length of the lever arm themselves. Some companies make short and long. So you have to consider that when you're thinking about like how much space do I have in my house. Because when I put these in the ground to do the belt squats, as you saw in my demo, I need quite a bit of space because they're hanging out the front of my rack. Even like right here, I need space going out, like as long as this is like 40 inches or whatever, like I need that much space in front of my rack. And I need space, like if I'm coming in to sit, like with my, my bench, like I need space for that. So you got to consider space definitely when you're buying these. So those are the exercises. So I talked about the exercises. I kind of talked about the features of these. Now let me talk about, do I like them? Should you buy them? Who are they for? And do I think it's worth it? So it's kind of an interesting conversation to have. So I think lever arms look really freaking cool. I think they look awesome. When I see like Instagram pics of them, I'm just like, whoa, those are cool. Functionality wise, I think that they're not as cool as they look. That's not to say I don't think they're useful and I don't think there's a place for them. So my suggestion to you is I would ask yourself, is there something in my workout I'm not doing because I don't have these? So for example, as I used the example earlier with the chest. So I'm doing chest exercises, but do I wish I had like that machine for an accessory? If the answer is yes, and yes I would use it, then these are probably something you would want to consider. The next question you also need to ask yourself is, am I the type of person that's okay taking like a minute or two during my workout and setting something up? I personally am. I set stuff up all the time. I have no problem setting stuff up. With my lever arms, I have it marked where they go. I know exactly where they go. I know how to get it all set up. I have it marked on the floor where my bench goes. I'm ready to go and do it. And I also spent time when I first got them figuring out where all the best positions were for me. So if you're the type of person that is like, I hate setting things up during my workout, it has to be immediate or I'm never going to use it, these probably are definitely not for you because it is a pain. If you're the type that's like, well, I kind of would like a machine, but I don't know if I'd use it, these probably aren't for you either. I also think a lot of the movements that these do, I can kind of accomplish with a functional trainer. For example, I could sit in here with if I had a functional trainer and was doing these kind of movements. I think I can do a lot of that stuff with a functional trainer when we're just talking about accessory work, right? Now, that's who I think should buy it and shouldn't buy it. Those are some of the is this for me or not? Because if you're you know what, I want to do everything with this, chest and shoulders, I think these are 100% going to be worth you buying. Now, features that I think were worth buying, I think you got to start to talk about well, what is the return on my investment? Because I do think that the ones that have the pin right here are super cool, but the brackets, I've seen the brackets with the pins go for $300. I totally don't think that's worth it. It wouldn't be worth it just to have pins when I can just use a chain, so how much do they cost versus what am I going to get out of them? I personally would not get the trolley ones unless you want these on the front of your rack all the time, because that just seems like it sucks, to be honest with you. I think that would be terrible, but for you, that might be awesome. So who knows? This is all opinion. There's no right or wrong, but I think having these stuck on your rack all the time is a terrible design. I don't like it. I do like that it moves up and down and it's quick and easy to adjust, but I don't like that it's there all the time. So if you don't like a cramped rack, don't get the trolley system. Get ones like these that come on and off. I do like the pins, but I don't think the pins are a make or break thing. As I said, you put safety spotter arms right here. You can use a chain. So I don't think that's make or break. It's just a nice to have. As far as cost of these things, I really think you got to look at what am I going to do? How much am I going to use them? I paid $200 for these. I got them Titan Scratch and Dent X3 lever arms on a great deal. Honestly, if I would have paid $400 for these, I'd be kind of pretty upset with my purchase and kicking myself because I think I wasted my money. For as much as I use them for accessory work and what I get out of it, they're okay. It's an okay $200 purchase, but if I'm talking I have $500 to spend on a piece of equipment, I'd much rather get a really nice, cool barbell stations, safety squat bar, or GHG machine or something. There's a bunch of other stuff that fills in gaps that I need much more than these. I put these very low on list of priorities of things I think people should get for a home gym. I put these very low. I would much rather have a rack, a bar, a bench, a lat pull down, or some kind of cable machine. I'd much rather have a GHD, reverse hyper, or both of those. After that stuff, maybe these start to get worthwhile and cool. But that's kind of where I put them on a list of priorities and what I think about them. I think they're okay. I think they do a great job of mimicking the machines. And especially if you use bands, they actually do a great job of it. It's just the setup and the fact that they're big and take up space and they're heavy is makes it so that it's not as fun as just sitting in a machine and doing it real quick. Especially when I'm talking about an accessory, I just want to bang out 30 reps of something quick after I did my chest. These aren't super great for that. It's just more of a pain and setup and have to really think through the process. So I think you just have to think through what kind of person am I. Are these going to be worth it for me? If you're on the fence about these, or you're hey, those look cool, probably don't get them. Get them because you're you know what, I really need to add machines into my workout. I don't mind setups. I've got a place to store these things, or I don't mind if they're on the front of my rack kind of thing. Get them because you really want them. I really would suggest looking for cheaper ones, because if you don't like them, you're going to hate that you spent $500 or even $1,000 on these things. You're going to be kicking yourself. So that's my recommendation to you. For those of you that have lever arms, let me know what you think about them. Let me know what you like, dislike, what kind you have, all the stuff about the features and everything. And later on.